Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Joe Rocha Golf Podcast. Today we have with us a great friend of mine and one of the leading nutrition coaches in the area and beyond, Ron Kafker. Ron, how are you today?
Thank you, Joe, for the privilege of being here with you today.
This is great. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Rocha, and I'm a PGA golf pro. I've been a PGA golf pro now for a number of years. Mainly have worked in the golf industry in Massachusetts at some of the top clubs in the area, like Salem Country Club and Essex County Club. And for the last 10 or 12 years, I've focused mainly on teaching. So I teach at Golf Country in Middleton and also at MIT. We have a nice indoor facility over there, which is perfect for especially the winter months. Get to continue working on my craft, so to speak, and appreciative of all the people that come out to see me. So that's a little bit about me. Ron, do you want to share with people a little bit about how you initially got into the nutrition field?
Oh, sure. Yeah, Joe. Thanks again for having me on your show. Back in the 70s, I was met some people who were very much involved in health and wellness. Mm-hmm. And I was led to them through some other friends. And I met a very interesting teacher, Japanese man, who was so impressed with his knowledge of how food, diet, and lifestyle affect one's health. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know too much about it because I grew up, like many people in this country, eating what's called the standard American diet.
Right.
And so what I observed was how people could make some very significant changes, becoming aware of how and what they put into their bodies in the way of food and beverage.
Sure.
And so I myself got involved and started changing my habits from the standard American diet, which, like a lot of people, I had subs and burgers and chips, Coke, and, this ice cream and stuff.
Wow, there was a time when you ate that sort of food.
Jiffy Pop, popcorn.
Right. But what originally was it that sort of attracted you to this sort of arena? Were you not feeling as well as you thought you could have at the time? Were you maybe a little bit overweight? Was there anything in particular that had you seek out?
Yeah, I was feeling logy and heavy, and I wasn't heavily overweight, but yeah, I just was feeling just logy, I'd say.
Okay.
And so, but it was some friends who really got me started, people I knew for a while. I said, come over to this place and try some of this carrot juice somewhere downtown Boston, one of these places that was there years ago. And
yeah.
And from there, I met some other people. As I mentioned, this Japanese man who I learned was the foremost teacher in the world of what was it then called and still called the macrobiotic approach to wellness.
Are we talking about Michio Kushi?
Yeah, that was the gentleman.
Yeah.
And so just to be around him and just to see how he talked with people, and people would walk in the room, first time to come to meet him for consultation, and he would tell them things and right away, I see that this ovaries have this problem. I see that this heart issue has been, and people would be like dropping their jaw. How does he know about me just looking at me for a few seconds?
Is it based somewhat in sort of Chinese, Eastern medicine?
Yeah, traditional Chinese medicine is definitely part of what it's based in. And so it has to do with what we call the yin and yang, which is Eastern terms for expansion, contraction. And, in Eastern philosophy, you'll hear that term a lot, yin and yang, and
right.
Tai Chi or Qigong, you might hear that conversation. So
yin yang, those words have been around for quite a long time.
Quite a long time, yeah.
Unlike some of these sort of fad sort of diets. And that's what drew me to you. Not that I knew about yin yang or Michio Kushi when we first met, but after learning more and more about your approach, that foundational basis of that yin yang like I said, approach to wellness really, struck me, and was a nice guide, and still continues to be, as as I
Yeah.
sort of progress. Do you want to? Can you expand a little bit more on that yin yang and how it applies to your
Yeah.
your consultations with people, and how you apply it in
Yeah.
your own life
Yeah. Well,
with eating and beyond?
yeah. Well, you were very open, which is another important thing. If an individual is open, when they're ready and open, they can really make some advances, because there's a lot of confusing information out there, and I try to like to keep it simple. So I talk about diet and nutrition, talking about simplistically what are some basics that you can follow as a guideline. And the macrobiotic approach, as I had learned it, is just a way of teaching the energetics of eating healthy. Now, just to give a short understanding of it, it basically revolves around eating whole grains, vegetables, legumes, fruits, nuts, seeds, animal food, but in smaller quantities than the normal American. And to get that down and start working on that transition for many people coming from the standard American diet, it might be a little bit of a slow process for some people. Some people might be really ready, maybe some people, like in your case, really to make some significant changes from what you've been doing. And so to be able to shift into that, and even within not necessarily many days or even weeks, people have noticed a difference in feeling better just from, let's say, cutting down on some of the animal foods, dairy foods, for example, that we've been teaching about keeping at a low minimum, and just start incorporating some things like brown rice or quinoa or millet, which a lot of people never even had.
Right.
And these are called the complex carbohydrates, which are much different in how they work on the body than the processed simple carbohydrates. Big difference between eating whole grain like millet, amaranth, quinoa, and just having the pastas, which are the processed, or the breads or the bagels.
The sort of quick energy versus the more lasting sort of energy that can sustain us.
Yeah, those processed things can create problems, including extra weight, extra blockages, whereas the grains, the whole grains, can keep the body more of a, shall I say, more of a slimmer dynamic than if they were keep eating lots of breads and cheeses and meats.
Right. And then the term, would blood sugar apply to that, where ideally we're managing blood sugar levels where we keep it more even? So the grains that you mentioned, more the whole grains, are keeping our blood sugar more even.
The whole grains and the use of variety of vegetables keep that blood sugar more even. Because when you're reducing sugars, processed foods, reducing animal foods, reducing large amount of cheeses, for example, and the processed foods, again, the chips and the crackers and stuff, which people have. They have the wings. It's a big thing, and we're coming up to Super Bowl. People are coming to me. But all in the right amount. What I teach is a healthy person can eat most anything, but he has to choose his time and amounts properly, and according to your own personal condition. I
can attest to Ron's flexibility with his approach to how we go about our diet, lifestyle.
Flexibility is very important. If you're rigid, that's not a healthy sign in Eastern medicine. You want to be able to have a balanced mind, body, spirit.
And there's so many unique things in Ron's approach, but one is, we're really not depriving ourselves of anything.
Not at all.
That's really the unique thing. And until that might seem like sort of an impossibility with a new approach to I don't want to even use the word diet, because that has a certain connotation.
No, you bring up a good point, because what I always been teaching is to teach people how to put together balanced, whole food, nutritious, healthy, delicious meals,
Right.
where you don't have to deny yourself and go on these so-called diets, which people go on and off all the time because, in my opinion, they're not learning proper healthy habits. If they learn those and they become habits, then one does not have to go on these seesaw diets and deny themselves for a little while, lose some weight, and then a couple of months later, they're not changing their habits, so they're back again in a similar situation.
Ron, interestingly as well in your approach is sort of the structure, so to speak, of how we go about our meals.
Yeah.
Do you want to speak to they're so basic, and
It's so
this almost
basic,
relates to the golf fundamentals. It's the sitting while
down,
eating, it's the chewing, it's the regular meal times.
That's exactly.
You want to talk a little bit about?
You brought up the main points: sitting down, not texting on your phone, not watching TV, not on your computer, but you have some quality time where you're sitting down to your meal, taking your time, chewing properly. This is another big thing that in this fast world that we're living in, everything got to be instantly. You got to talk to them instantly. Everything's got to be quick, quick, quick.
Yeah.
And so sitting down, taking your time, chewing your food properly, this helps in your health. This is just a very significant little tip that I've been talking about for years. Really masticating your meat, masticating your food, help your digestion, and everything works more smoothly. So yeah, that's a very good point. And trying to eat, try not to eat like 3 hours before you go to bed. Now that's a very simple thing to say, but a lot of people, they might be snacking and up until the time they go to bed. But if we can develop some of these simple habits like you referred to, sitting down for the meal without being distracted, without texting, without talking on the phone, quality time, appreciating your meal, chewing it with a consciousness, that goes a long way. And what else? For simple things like, well, the exercise, that's goes without saying, trying to move around, keep yourself walking, take a walk, do some strength training, whatever you can do. Like you've been telling me, you did some Tai Chi. That's a very good practice to do.
Right.
Qigong, yoga.
Yeah.
But basically, it can make a huge difference if people can just be open to making some simple adjustments to their daily habits, how different they can feel.
Ron, I'm hearing some things out there and just hearing some different friends and what's happening as far as meals. Where do you stand on, so to speak? I know, again, you're so flexible in your approach, but do you like 3 meals? Some people are skipping meals. Some people are fasting. Can you talk a little bit about what you think about that?
Yeah, well, that's going to vary a little bit. But I say anywhere between 2 to 3 meals, depending on the individual condition.
Okay.
And so to have a morning meal, a breakfast meal, I might have like a cereal, a type of a whole grain, maybe a protein with it. This protein might be something like some fried tofu, for example. Now, some people might not like that. It might be foreign to some people.
Right.
And now I have over here, I always have my tea. Now, this is a green tea called kuki cha. Now, this is particularly helpful for digestion, helping to calm the body down. And without having to, shall I say, jack themselves up with 2, 3, 4 cups of coffee a day. Nothing against coffee, but for some people, that can throw them off balance. It's an extreme food. We were talking about yin and yang before.
Right.
Coffee being more of an extreme yin food will attract the opposite. which would be yang food, which would be more, for example, say more meat, for example. So you get an attraction to that, and so you're going from extremes. But what I try to teach is if you can eat in the middle, most of your meals, whole grain, bean, vegetables, sea vegetables, another thing that I had introduced to you quite a while back, which you hadn't been aware of.
Had no idea. It was so foreign to me, but now
Yeah,
it's
seaweeds, sea vegetables are key because they're the richest of all plant foods in minerals, minerals and microminerals. Now, the Japanese have known about this for 1,000 years, you know, and to incorporate good quality soups, particularly like miso soup, which again is a cultured soybean, a protein, and that type of soup has live microorganisms in it, particularly enzymes and probiotics. So that, again, this is the way within your food you can get your more nutrients, so you don't have to be dependent on having a lot of different supplements. Primarily, if you do your diligence in eating balanced, quality whole food meals on a regular basis, that goes a long way in your health, and one does not need so many different extra supplements. Now, one other point, if I may, Joe,
please,
is which is very key too, is it's really important, and I've been teaching about this for years, is proper hydration. Most Americans, most of them are unintentionally dehydrated. Okay, and so a very simple practice that I taught called the water cure recipe is really drinking good, clean quality water. And ideally, if you can drink close to half your body weight, which might be a big jump for a lot of people, especially if they're only drinking a couple of sips of water a day. But this is a therapy that I share with people, and it's very profound if one does it properly. And the idea is to drink close to half your body weight in ounces, yet with an addition of each pint, a little pinch of a mineral-rich sea salt. I'm not going to go into details here. Maybe on another show we can go in more deep. But just something as simple as having a good source of clean water in your home is very key. That's something that I provided for people in the form of a very specific water filtration system, which I've used for 40 years. And now you get the
Ron introduced me to it's called MultiPure. Ron introduced me to MultiPure about maybe 8 years ago or so, and it's a staple. It's something I use every day. All of the water, that I drink is through the water filtration, system, which is very simple. It's under the sink, and then a spout, comes up, and you just fill your, glass, or I actually, with the water cure, boil the water so it's a little bit warm, a little bit more like body temperature, which is pretty neat. You can cook with it, wash your vegetables with it, feed your pet, have your pets drink good clean water as well.
Joe mentions a good point, because it's so practical. You can do that. Now, you imagine if you're going to buy bottled water and try washing your vegetables and doing all your cooking with bottles of water, you'd be going through a dozen bottles in 2 days. So this is a very practical way you can make sure you can keep yourself away from all these different chemicals. There's so many in the water supply today. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but the plastics and the chemicals that are in there, the carcinogenic chemicals.
And who doesn't buy water and question where the water actually came from? A little bit sometimes, depending on the company's water that you buy, and it's expensive too.
It's very expensive.
And then you're lugging it. I don't miss lugging. 24 packs of bottles of water, and sometimes you finish half of them, and you feel bad, you only finish half. So the MultiPure is a great system that you
very practical.
Very practical.
Like you mentioned, I haven't had to buy bottled water. If you can imagine how much I saved for the last 40 years.
Incredible.
So it just makes it that much more easy I mean, I would miss it if I didn't have my water system for one day.
I know, I wouldn't know what to do with myself either. It's
so
that big a deal.
Because you go
I
out
have it right here.
You go out to eat, and you can taste the difference when you go to like a restaurant or whatever.
Sure.
Most restaurants, they don't have this quality water. So that's a key thing to bring up, proper hydration. It's very therapeutic, and it really doesn't cost anything to do it properly.
Excellent.
Let's see.
Well, you brought up a great point about the yin and the yang and in the cravings that we have. It's interesting, you know, Ron talked about eating more in the middle, more of a balanced diet. So back to not depriving ourselves of anything, you know, from personal experience, I don't really crave. I was like you growing up, you know, you mentioned I've had every sweet, you know, being part of mostly Italian. We've had all the Italian pastries and the breads and the
Mangia.
the pastas. I've had every, you know, bad food, you know, cake, dessert, everything, the cupcakes, everything. But now since you know, under Ron's guidance, I really don't crave it anymore.
That's huge.
You know, and in
That's
fact,
huge.
it's funny. One of the places that I teach at, the main place that I teach is Golf Country, which is right next to Richardson's Dairy. And back in the day, Richardson's, we used to make a run to Richardson's, you know, every now and then for a Sunday or probably a Sunday back in the day. Having been there for now about 10 or 12 years, I think I can count on one hand. Definitely. I think I can count on one hand, maybe two.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's people that my students are so great. They invite me over to have, you know, something with them. So I'll go. And again, with Ron's flexibility, which is so great, that I really, it's not like I have to say, no, I can't, you know? And that sort of blends into one other question that I've had in one area of Ron's so modest, but one area really of great expertise when it comes to Ron's guidance is making good choices while out of the home. I mean, you know, cooking at home. Who's going to argue with a home cooked meal, right? I mean, you know, we're going to be able to kind of control the ingredients, and the quality is there, and the love of the cooking is in there, so we know where that food is coming from. But when we go out, that's one thing that you've helped, you know, me and, you know, my wife Jen. We just, you know, we're able to
Relax.
to relax and make some better choices. What do you say about that, Ron? Anything that you have for people as far as out to dinner?
Well, what you brought up just a minute ago was the point of, as you gradually start choosing more balanced whole food meals, all these cravings diminish significantly.
They do. I can attest.
So you're not like losing. You don't feel like you're losing anything. Like,
No.
You know?
Right.
You're not having any more of these you're not having as many as these Sundays and whatever. You have an occasional drink or occasional dessert you might normally have in the home, but that's occasional.
Right.
Now,
And what do you see as people's challenges? What are the biggest challenges, would you say, of people that maybe are eating the sort of standard American diet, maybe have a little bit of a little chaotic way of eating? What are the challenges, do you think, are the biggest for people out there?
the biggest challenge is probably...
And what would you sort of wish for people if you could? What would be maybe even a couple of things that you would, pieces of advice that you'd give right off the top?
Yeah, well, one is, as I mentioned briefly, is they learn about hydrating themselves properly.
Hydration.
That's a very simple thing to do.
Yeah.
And one is to be open to eating more, again, simple whole foods.
Okay.
Like when you go to the store, there's many things that quasi-healthy if you go to so-called a health food supermarket. Yet the best, smartest ways to shop is to spend most of your money, your hard-earned money, in the produce section and start getting more used to some different wide variety of just the vegetable kingdom. Root vegetables that grow under the ground, like carrots, daikon, turnips, ground vegetables, squashes, cauliflower, these other vegetables that grow on the ground, and leafy greens like collard, kale, all these different varieties. That's just for the vegetable to get a little more acclimated to a little more variety, because some people are just stuck on the same two, three vegetables and the two or three potato or meat, and not really giving themselves a chance to experience more of a spectrum of healthier meals,
And then there's a couple of things with that. One is when you start to eat more in a balanced way, like you're talking about, the vegetables will start to sort of taste better. They'll fit more into you, because am I correct in saying the vegetable sort of kingdom is in the middle?
Yeah.
Right. It's not really on the edges.
Definitely.
So if you're eating sort of extreme foods, you're really not going to crave vegetables. So to say you don't like vegetables, you would agree. Yeah, I can see why you don't like vegetables. Yes. So that'll sort of grow. That's my experience too. Your sort of craving of vegetables will increase the more you bring your choices into the middle. And then also another thing I've experienced is the way we prepare vegetables too, even just in simple ways, can really add to, as you mentioned the word delicious, because we're really looking to have delicious food and delicious meals. Like, I really enjoy, Ron's cooked a number of meals over the years for me, and I've always enjoyed Ron's great, simple cooking. So those are a couple things, because just myself, even talking with people, they're sort of hesitant about the vegetable, world.
Yeah. Again, you were open-minded too, which is a very important positive sign.
Yeah.
Because I don't try to push on anybody unless they have some openness to really want to improve and learn.
Right. Well, I could have said it at the top, but I have an asthma sort of condition there. So I was always under the impression, sort of instinctively, that what I was eating was contributing to my situation, which I think now, after working with Ron, all the breads and the dry foods and things can contribute. So after eliminating that, it's helped a ton. And even just like you said, eliminating dairy. Now, for a lot of people, the dairy industry and the things we hear about, dairy's like a non-negotiable staple, but to eliminate some of the dairy, to get off some of the dairy, that I found I was a little bit overweight when I met Ron, in the weight, if people are interested in getting more balance and weight, that my weight just literally like dripped off of me, is how I put it when I eliminated dairy. But it's a little scary at first, because we're brought up to believe we need it.
Well, yeah, on the standard American diet, it's slowly changing now, because many medical people are jumping on the health wagon, shall I say, and recommending to people to reduce the dairy food.
Okay.
And so
it's getting more into mainstream.
It's getting more mainstream now, hopefully. But still, there's so many people out there unnecessarily suffering, and if they knew some of the simple things of shifting to their choices of foods to prepare, they could make life a lot more easier for them, and be able to reduce and in different cases get off the different drugs that they are attached to, shall I say. And so that's a big plus to eating healthy. Many people I work with find that they can cut down and reduce their medications, and that's huge for people. And also, well, you mentioned weight too. For a lot of people, that's an issue.
Right.
And weight ties into blood pressure and other things.
Yeah.
But the weight definitely will stabilize when you're starting to eat more as natural whole foods again, whole grains, vegetables, legumes, and including soups, like I mentioned, especially in this type of season, how it warms the system up and helps with digestion. A vegetable soup, particularly a miso vegetable soup, is one of my favorite ones to recommend because, again, I mentioned earlier, it's contains these live microorganisms, which are things like people are more and more conscious of these days, probiotics and also enzymes. So it helps the gut area, which is important because 80% or so of our immune system is in our gut, and that's being more and more taught these recent years. So the importance of good gut health is the key aspect, and you get that to build up to better gut health as you're shifting more into whole foods, complex carbohydrates, using the legumes, which are rich in protein, fiber, minerals, and vitamins, like beans, particularly like chickpeas, lentils, aduki beans, black beans. They don't have to be in large amounts, but start to introduce that in and cut back, perhaps to the average person I'm talking to, cut back on the amount of the cheeses, less dairy, less of the breads, less of the processed grains, again, crackers, even too much of the pastas, the different types of pastas. You want to not overdo it on that and get your complex carbs, which is, again, is the whole grains, the beans, vegetables. They have a slower burning effect and a longer burning effect to keep your energy going longer, rather than a chaotic energy, which is the standard American diet. Let's say meat and sugar, to put it very briefly. It's more
on the two extremes.
Yeah, on the two extremes, but go into the balanced middle now, and things are becoming a lot easier to start manage your health. You'll start feeling more calmer. You'll start to just feel better about yourself because you're now more inspired. You can realize, okay, I'm noticing a little shift here, so let me continue with this longer and stay in touch with me or whoever, and get good support on it, so you can ride it out and start feeling much, much better than say you're suffering with an illness or sickness or debilitating cause. I've heard stories of any healing can be done on, I believe, on any condition. I'm not saying I could heal everybody, but I mean, tremendous healings with the great food and maybe a couple of other complementary things that we can probably discuss on another time, because that a couple of other supplementary things, one or two other things in addition to the water, that will help round out your hopefully good eating, going more towards healthy whole food meals, which would be great if most people are able to start having a desire to do that and not realize that they don't. My message is people don't have to be subject to having to be addicted to drugs, and they don't have to give up in the fact that they have a designated disease that it cannot be significantly improved. And my experience is diet and lifestyle can be a big game changer, Joe, for that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ron, thank you so much. We could talk for probably all day about health and nutrition, like we do.
It's an ongoing subject, but
yeah,
I don't want to confuse too many people out there.
No, that was great information, and I've heard some of it before, but it's always great to get a refresher.
Yeah.
And I know I'm inspired. I'm always inspired when I talk with Ron.
Thank you, Joe. I love to inspire people. That's been my mission since 1975, to just do whatever I can to inspire people and bless them to have better health, largely through diet and lifestyle. And
beautiful.
That's my wish for anyone who's open to wanting to improve their health and wellness.
Awesome. Ron, thanks again for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Listen, thanks again for letting me have the privilege of being a guest.
How can they find you?
Well, you can reach me at 978-335-0159, And you could email me if you choose to, if that's more comfortable, at ronkafker@gmail.com, RONKAF as in Frank, KER @gmail.com. So thanks again, Joe.
Beautiful. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you again on our next show.
Take care.